afternoon, everybody. And I'm certainly happy to be here. And let me turn off this other thing so that you don't hear an echo here. Hi, members of Rotary Club of Proviso and all of you who tuned in with us today. I'm excited about this wonderful person that we have that's with us today, and I just so appreciate her being with us. Carol Moseley Braun was born in Chicago to Edna, who was a medical technician, and Joseph Moseley, a Chicago police officer, in 1947. Her parents emphasized the importance of education and the necessity of hard work through Carol's childhood, and she learned these lessons well. A self-motivated individual, even as a youth, Carol worked in the post office, in the grocery stores in order to finance her own education after high school. Her diligence earned her, which the ambitious young woman received with honors. Carol worked for 3 years as a prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Her success as a prosecutor earned her the United States Attorney General's Special Achievement Award. Then, she didn't do enough. She went on and was elected to the Illinois House of Representatives, where she immediately earned a reputation for her ability to build coalitions comprised of people of all races who are committed to the same principles of efficient government. After only 2 terms in the House, Carol Moseley Braun was selected to become the first woman and the first African American in Illinois history to serve as an assistant majority leader. As the late Mayor Harold Washington's legislative floor leader, Carol Braun was the chief sponsor of a bill to reform education and to ban discrimination in housing and private clubs. For each of her 10 years in the legislature, she received the Best Legislator Award given by the Independent Voters of Illinois Independent Precinct Organization. On November 3rd, 1993, she was elected to the U.S. Senate. The Year of the Woman. Her victory represented the opening of a new world of opportunity to African Americans, as she was the only second African American elected to the U.S. Senate. Upon taking office, she was named to the Judiciary Committee, the Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee, and the Small Business Committee. During her term, she was a strong champion of health care and education reform. In 1999, if she hadn't done enough, President Clinton appointed her United States Ambassador to New Zealand. She was later appointed United States Ambassador to Samoa in the year 2000 by President George Bush. I could go on and talk about Carol and all the great stuff that she's been a first in. But one thing I want you all to know about this lady, she works her plan and plans her work. She's a good friend and a mentor to me. And I appreciate so very much that she's sharing with us today. So without further ado, my friend, Ambassador Carol Moseley Braun. Carol?
Thank you very much, Clerk Yarborough. My Zoom is frozen.
Oh, it happens. You don't want to hear what happened to mine today. But we can hear you.
Oh, you can? Okay. Well,
maybe to Ms. Killingham, maybe you could remove the screen share and go to speaker view. It may help.
I don't know, Dr. Lipka, if your screen is frozen. I'm no longer sharing.
It's still there. Your screen share is still there, Amanda.
Okay.
But Carol, can you hear all of us?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm still looking at Deborah Underwood. So, and I can see you.
Yeah.
Girl in the corner a little bit, but past that.
Okay, well, you know what? Why don't you just go ahead and speak? Armanda's going to try to remove what she shared with us on the screen.
All right. Actually, that's actually one of the good things about Zoom. You know, nobody gets to see how really messed up you are. So, but I'm prepared to start. First off, Clerk Yarborough, thank you very much for that lovely complimentary introduction. I'm very, very pleased that you called me mentor. I think that's a real compliment because you've been so successful in your own political career. And I'm so proud of you and everything you do. And you always come out on the right side of the issue. So, and you've been able to hang in there. And I'm very, very proud of the work that you do and of the presence that you've had in our Democratic Party politics here in Illinois.
Thank you.
I want to thank Dr. Lipka and all of you who are members of the Rotary Club of Proviso for inviting me to share this afternoon with you. This is a real, Rotary has such an international reputation, such a high international reputation. In fact, when I was ambassador in New Zealand, there was a very active Rotary Club there in wasn't Auckland, Wellington. Yeah, so there was a very active branch of the Rotary Club in New Zealand, and I just wanted to share that with you because, again, you've got such a wonderful organization that is worldwide. I want to talk a little, What did you say?
I don't think anyone said. In fact, I'm going to ask that everybody mute themselves, please.
The only persons that are muted is that everyone is muted except for the speaker and Dr. Lipka.
Okay. And so to all of you who make Rotary so vital here in this community, I want to say thank you for your work. It's very important. These kinds of organizations serve a very important function in terms of making our society work. And you're going to be commended and feel good about what it is you're doing, not just hosting programs on Women's History Month or Black History Month, but also just the work you do as a regular matter that helps to build and solidify the positive points of our community. And because, again, without it, I think we'd all be adrift and have a bigger problem in this country than we do now. So thank you for having me, and thank you for the invitation. I want to thank also to say congratulations also to the person who led the prayer and to the gentleman who led the Pledge of Allegiance. That was very, very nice. And again, I'm very happy and honored to be here with you today. I'm gonna kind of take a little detour here, and not so much women's history, but in leadership. Although I could talk specifically about that. But I want to talk a little bit about leadership in general. And to start off with the notion of a commercial that would tug at my heartstrings every time I saw it. It was a young boy who was attempting to dunk a basketball. The problem was he was about my height, 5'4", and when he made a running leap to try to hit the basket, he came up short. To me, the message of that commercial was that his dreams were unfettered by his height, and he had to try to push himself to do something his imagination held for him. I think leadership is a lot like that. The courage to try, even when the odds are not good, the resilience to go for it, and the perseverance to see it through. I would like to leave you with 3 points of reference for this conversation. The first is that leadership takes courage. The second is that it takes persistence and resilience. And the third is that it takes perseverance. The only consistent thing in this life is change. The challenge that we all face is whether or not we will just go with whatever life gives us or challenge the status quo. I am, as Karen in her lovely introduction, I'm a lawyer who has served in government at the international level as ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa, at the national level as United States Senator from Illinois, at the local level as Recorder of Deeds of Cook County. And that was how Karen and I first connected. Actually, we connected before that, but we had a lovely conversation about being Recorder of Deeds which is a more important office than you would imagine. I've got a women's history story in connection with the Recorder of Deeds office. When I first got there, they still called women spinsters on deeds, or alternative, she was married, she was et ux, and et ux, there's Latin for and cow, so it'd be Joe Blow and cow. So I had to go to the state legislature to get that changed, and so by the time Karen got there, the deeds were no longer as insulting as they had been. And I was able to do that because, of course, I had served in the state legislature for 10 years as a state representative. I was assistant majority leader for 5 of those 10 years. And there's a story associated with that as well. I sued my own party. I'm a Democrat. I was the first Black Democrat elected to the United States Senate because the other Black people had been Republicans, even down to Ed Brooke, who was the first Black actually elected after post-Reconstruction to the Senate, and they had all been Republicans. So I was the first Black Democrat, the first woman from Illinois, the first woman to defeat an incumbent United States Senator to get to the Senate. And it all started because of my service in the Illinois General Assembly. Like I said, I sued my own party on reapportionment, and the good news is we won the case and created additional districts in which Blacks would have an opportunity to elect, and the first Hispanic districts in the entire state, in the history of the state. And so I'm very, very proud of that. But as Karen pointed out, I started my career as an assistant United States attorney. My father's, this is bothering me. I'm looking at this black screen, and should I not be,
maybe if you once again stop your video and then start it again. Okay, I think she went for me. And she's back. Okay.
Yeah, I don't see
Yeah, she's
her
back.
on our list. She is back.
well, I can't, oh, can you see me now? I can see.
There you are. We see you.
Okay.
There. I've pinned your video.
But anyway, to tell you, to share some personal information, my father's people are from New Orleans. My mother's people are from Union Springs, Alabama. But I did grow up here in Chicago on the South Side, and spent actually a little bit of time in Maywood. I think I told Karen this story. When I ran away from home when I was like a teenager, and I wound up running to a friend's house in Maywood. So I've had some connections with the Proviso community in the past. But just to talk a little bit about, I think it's important that we celebrate Women's History Month and celebrate the progress we've made instead of being frustrated that we haven't made more. And the reason I say that is because not just because of the Ed books and the Spencer on the deeds, but in my lifetime alone, I've seen the changes that have happened with the society and the culture generally that's allowed women to have opportunities to participate in civil society and to be part of the community as a whole. Remember, this is the 100th year of women getting the vote in the United States. We didn't have the vote even 100 years ago. And so from that, we have come so far that we are now looking at having the first woman of color as a vice president. I mean, I'm so proud of Kamala Harris because she has really, the glass ceiling is not broken yet, but we are making strides. And she has been a real trailblazer in getting to be vice president to President Joe Biden. I think that women, because the society and the culture have changed, and this is where Rotary comes in and it's so important. You guys have helped to change the cultural conversation where we are as a nation. And because of that, people have expectations, young women in particular, have expectations of being able to participate as equals in this government by the people, of the people, and for the people. They are not content just sit back and and just be silent unless asked to speak about something. They want to be heard. They want their words to be respected and their perspectives to matter. And they do matter. And I just think that part of creating community is where Rotary has excelled in the past and will continue to excel. And it really is where all the rest of this comes from. None of us could hold office. Neither Karen nor I could have been elected officials had the people of the state of Illinois not been inclined to vote for a woman of color for these different positions. The people got there first. And I think that's the most important message, is that the changes happen at the grassroots level before they happen in government or in politics. And we should, rather than bemoan the fact that we haven't got it all yet, I think we should really celebrate the fact that we have come this far and that we are opening up the doors of opportunity that this country has always promised everybody, right? I mean, that's our founding charters here in the United States, government by the people, of the people, and for the people. And the whole idea is that everybody is supposed to be treated with equality and with respect and have an equal voice in making the rules by which everybody agrees to live. So I can talk specifically about role models and people who paved the way for me. Certainly, I didn't do it by myself. It was not just the people in Illinois who decided that it was okay to have a Black woman represent them, but it was also the function of the fact that so many women had agitated for enfranchisement, had agitated for equality. And there were so many people, male and female, by the way, that made it possible. I'm particularly fond of citing Thurgood Marshall, who was my role model, or one of my role models. Thurgood Marshall made such a contribution to the United States Supreme Court. I know for a fact, I feel really confident that my whole life would have been different had it not been for the Warren Court and the contributions they made in moving this country forward. I mean, everything from opening up public accommodations to allowing for equality of access to higher education, to giving people the ability even to marry. I mean, you go right down the list. The Warren Court made such a huge difference in all of our lives and in shaping the society that we now live in. And I just hope that we continue to move in the direction of expanding opportunity, giving people a chance to contribute, and giving people a chance to be heard and respected for what they have to say. That, it seems to me, is the goal. You express it as service before self, and I think that is critical for everybody to be mindful of, to keep in their mind, because it only in looking out for the community as a whole will we be able to move progress in the direction. It is not inevitable that progress will continue to go forward, that the country will continue to move forward. That's not inevitable. That's driven by participation of individuals such as the people who are on this call and the people you touch in your daily lives. So I want to commend you on what you have done, congratulate you on what you're doing, and encourage you with what you will do. So, and I think it will make the difference in the lives of the generation that's going to come behind us, which at the end of the day is what we're all here for, right? To make things better for the generation, the people who will follow us, than what we inherited from our parents. And so I think that, and for me, actually, that's where a lot of the inspiration for me comes, looking at these young girls who look at me and say, well, if she can do it, excuse me, she can do that, certainly I can do what I want to do. And back to the story of the little boy playing basketball. He saw the possibilities, not the limitations. And whether it's gender or race, poverty, class, whatever the describer is, if you consider the possibilities of what it is you have that you'd like to do, what you can contribute, what you can do for others, and not let yourself be deterred by whatever limitations there may be, you will be on the right track.
Ambassador Braun, we have a question in the chat, so I'd like, let's see, Armanda, if you would open to allow Carolyn Wilhite to speak. It appears her mother is from Union Springs, Alabama.
No kidding.
And she has family still there. Her uncle has served as the clerk, and his name was Curtis Elsie. So,
I've spoken to him. I know who he is.
oh, wow. So would you open up so that Carolyn Wilhite can speak to Ambassador Braun?
Hello, Ambassador.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. I am truly in shock because sometimes we refer to Union Springs and Hirschville, Alabama as LA, Lower Alabama. And it's so exciting to know that your parents are from there. This is great. So my question to you is, a part of your political career, what was the most difficult part of running for office during your time?
Well, it's been a struggle in many ways, but you just have to keep going. That's when you have perseverance. You have to just kind of hang in there and not give up and not let other people basically kick you to the curb based on their own ambitions. I went through a period of being the GOAT in which everybody hated me. At least I thought I did. I mean, and frankly, I took it personally. I'm doing better now. I didn't let it make me bitter. I kind of grew out of it. That was part of what New Zealand did for me. I said I was ambassador to paradise when I got to New Zealand, and it was the respite that my soul needed because I had been so battered and kicked around. I mean, I ran into every racial and gender-based stereotype you can imagine. And so I spent 6 years. It was a great honor to have been elected, but I then spent the next 6 years trying to prove that I was not corrupt and not all these horrible things, not lazy, shiftless, etc. Fill in the blanks. And I did. I came through it unscathed. I mean, I would feel very blessed because I came out of it unscathed. But it was a struggle. It was a real struggle, and it was really bad. And I took it personally. And I think that is one of the things that you, with time and with age and maturity, you begin to understand that a lot of this is not personal. It's not really about you. It's about the position that you hold. I had no idea, frankly, at the time that I was stepping on anybody's toes by being in the Senate. Although I should have known better. I mean, I was educated enough. I should have known better, but I didn't. And I took it very personally, and I took it to heart that I was being just so vilified, scandalized. I had that old song. They scandalized my name. So yeah. I was really hurt by a lot of that. And New Zealand allowed me to heal. Thank goodness. I call myself Ambassador to Paradise, and I was actually made an honorary member of a Maori tribe. So I'm Te Atiawa is my tribal identification. So it all worked out, and I'm here now. I'm flunking retirement. Actually, I'm theoretically retired, but working on being a grandmother of twins. So I'm in a good place in my life at this point.
Yes, and thank you so much. And I will mention it to my uncle, as I hope they have the annual class reunion this year as I attend with my mother. So thank you so much.
I've never gone. And when is that going to be? Because we actually we have heirs property there in Union Springs. And my son, thank goodness, wants to do something with it.
I will let the clerk know to get you that message, because they have been talking about it, given, everything that happened with COVID and how things stand, but they are hoping to still do something this year.
Wonderful. We'd like to participate.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
They talk about 6 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah.
So another question. So what was it like in the Illinois House when you were there? You were there for, did you say 10 years?
Yes.
Yes. What was it like? Who were the other members in the House at the time that helped you along your way?
Well, to be honest, when I got to the legislature, the state legislature, when I first ran for the state legislature, I had left the U.S. Attorney's Office and was going to be a homemaker. I mean, I got involved with the bird watchers in Jackson Park. I'm laughing, but that's actually how my political career got started. I was bird watching in Jackson Park. And so, and when our state representative retired, some people who the bird watchers came and said, we think you should consider running for his office because we think you'd be good at it. And I went, oh, no, not me. I don't know anything about politics. Girls do that, right? You just kind of, I demurred and thought, oh, not me. And then a guy who is still around, actually, gets really annoyed when I tell the story, but it's the truth and he knows it. So it's, if you tell the truth, shame the devil, right? So, so this guy said to me, don't run. You can't possibly win. The blacks won't vote for you because you're not part of the Chicago machine. The whites won't vote for you because you're black. And nobody's going to vote for you because you're a woman. It was like, okay, where do I sign up for this job? I mean, he just pushed me over the edge and made a candidacy where none had existed before. So it wasn't like I had, like I started out looking to go to the legislature, but I wound up running. It was a big field, and I came in first. Who was there? Well, Mike Madigan was still serving. He was not speaker only 2 of the years that I was there, but Mike Madigan became the speaker. Mike Madigan actually, the interesting thing there, of course, is that he was the person I had to sue on the reapportionment because he had done the reapportionment in the 1980s. And when I filed a lawsuit against the Democratic Party of Illinois, he became the defendant. And so happily we patched up and have worked together subsequently since. And he actually rewarded me because there has always been a black woman in leadership now since then. I was the first. But Mike Madigan made it a point that I was not the last, and I'm grateful to him for that. I also worked, in fact, I'm probably going to have lunch in a week or so with another former colleague from the Illinois legislature, because you recall when Harold Washington got elected, there was a whole group that lined up behind, they called themselves the Verdoliak 29, and there was a whole group that lined up with them to basically strip Harold Washington of the prerogatives of being mayor of Chicago. And of course, my job was to make sure that didn't happen. And the good news is I've remained friends with a number of those people ever since. And I'm having lunch with one of them next week.
Beautiful. The next question, this is from Brian Cross. Can you unmute Brian so that he can ask? I can ask this question. If you can't unmute him, but he wants to know, what was it like dealing with the different prime ministers in New Zealand? You had one Labour coalition and on hybrid national party, and one hybrid national party.
Well, New Zealand has got a different system than we have. They've got proportional representation, whereas we don't. We have a republic. But when I got there, I referred to it as being ambassador to paradise because I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. When I got to New Zealand, they were on their second female prime minister. The first one had been from the right wing. Jenny Shipley was her name. And then the one that was prime minister when I got there was a representative of the Labor coalition, Helen Clark. And Helen and I became friends. And so, but they were very easy to work with because you think about it, the idea when you're ambassador, your whole job description is to make the country, not embarrass your country, wherever you are. There's an old story about Eisenhower asking a young ambassador, what country do you represent? And the person walked over to a map of the world and pointed out to the country that he had been assigned to. And Eisenhower reminded him, no, you represent the United States of America. And so I was always mindful of that my job was to represent the United States of America. And therefore I was tasked to get along with everybody, not get involved with their domestic politics, which I did not, because their domestic politics puts ours to shame. Actually, they are so much to the left of the United States. It's not even funny. But I fit in very well. It was very easy. Everybody was really nice to me. And again, that's why I like to be called ambassador, because it's the best job I've ever had.
It's one more follow-up question. I bet you wish you could have worked with Jacinda Ardern today. She is amazing.
She is really phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And actually her background made her the perfect person for a time like this, because she came into the prime ministership having served in crisis management. Mm-hmm. And so, who knew? But she was able to get right on it with regard to COVID and the pandemic and everything. And that's because she knew how to handle crises like that. And she did a fabulous job.
Her handling of Christchurch was also so laudable too.
It was. Yes, it was.
She's a fine woman. She's definitely amazing.
Yes, she is. She's wonderful.
We have a statement from Scott Kozlov, and he says, "I'm neither a woman nor a member of a minority, but your career serves as an incredible inspiration to me. Thank you for your time today." Scott Kozlov. He's our Chief Ethics Officer for the clerk's office. Let's see. Okay. So from Ms. Lumpkin, and she's our Director of Elections, she said, "It's great that you ignored the naysayers and pursued and prevailed as U.S. Senator. I look forward to seeing you around Hyde Park again." But I think you moved, didn't you?
I did briefly, but I'm back in Hyde Park now. I'm in Madison Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next, Shakina Kersey. Can you bring Shakina up? She has a question for you.
Okay, just 1 second. I'll get her up. Okay, Shakina, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for joining us today, Ms. Moseley Braun. I wanted to know, is there any political position that you wanted to run for but chose not to, and do you regret not running for that position?
I didn't have that much sense. No, my little niece said to me, and in fact, this is another piece of the story. When I got back from New Zealand, I was going to leave politics altogether. But my niece, who was then 10 years old, was looking at her social studies book. And she called, she said, Auntie Carol, come quick. I didn't know something was wrong. So I went to her room, and she's sitting there. Her little feet were not even touching the ground. She's sitting at her desk and had a social studies book open. And she said, "But Auntie Carol, all the presidents are boys." And I looked at her and said, "Well, sweetie, girls can be president too." And then I left the room thinking I just lied to her. So my brother said, "Well, what are you going to do about it?it?" I said, "Well, I guess I have to run for president." And so I went ahead and I ran for president. I had no money. I had $0. It was in some ways a fool's errand, except that I was really encouraged by the fact that I would go around the places in this country. I got to see more of America than I ever thought I would. But I'd go to places where there were no Black people. There had never been a woman elected official. And men would come up with their little girls and said, "I just wanted her to see that girls can do this too." And it was like, that was so encouraging and heartening to me that I could be an example for them in that way and show and model for these little girls that the sky was the limit. You could just keep going at it. That's why I told the story about the little kid who was trying to dunk the basket, because the whole idea was, if you have the qualifications and you believe you can do the job and you know what the job description is and requirements are, then you should just go for it. And there's people who spend a lot of time, thinking about, oh, this person will be angry if I did that, and this person won't like it if I do that. I've never let it stand in my way, and that has been the reason for the story.
Okay. Next up is Takesha Uford. Could you bring her up? She has a question. And then you can also, C.D. Harris would like to ask a question. So tee both of those folks up.
Takesha can speak.
Hello, thank you for joining us today. I am curious as to what sparked your interest in politics and government.
Well, again, I made the point I wasn't interested. I was a bird watcher. I mean, I had actually wanted to be an art historian, but my father told me I couldn't make a living in art history and persuaded me to go to law school. So I became a lawyer first, and then after law school, again, I didn't know, because I became an assistant U.S. attorney. I was a prosecutor. I didn't know I was going to go into elective office at that point. But again, after the bird watching episode and with this guy telling me, nobody will vote for you because you're a woman, it was like, okay, so that was the path that was laid out for me. And I didn't shy away from going for it. I mean, it made sense to me. It was something I could do. It was something I understood. And I thought I could do a good job and I could make a contribution. And I think that if you start off with that, you know, how can I contribute? How can I make the world better? How can I live my ideals in a positive and constructive way to help others? If you start off with that, then that will be your lodestone. That'll be your guidepost. That'll take you to the right place.
Thank you.
Hey, C.D. Harris doesn't have a working mic, so this is both for you, strong women of influence. Who or what keeps you motivated to push on?
Well, right now I'm flunking retirement. Trying to get into just being a grandmother. And of course I'm not. I mean, I'm still working. I'm still practicing law a little bit. I guess because I'm just one of these people who I was taught, you know, every day is a gift. And so for me to wake up in the morning and not do something constructive in that day is squandering, is wrong in my opinion. So I always try to make each day matter to the extent that I can. And that's what keeps me motivated. That's what keeps me going. The idea that as long as I draw breath, I want to make a contribution in a positive way to the world in which I live and to the world in which my grandbabies will come. I mean, they're going to grow up in a world that I hope is better than the world that I inherited from my parents. And I hope that I can play some part in making it a good world, making our country better. I don't know that I can, but I'm certainly going to try. And, you know, and that's all you can ever do is try. It's like that little boy trying to dunk the basketball, you know. It's all you can ever do is try. And that's what I try to do.
Okay, next up, Ms. Staggers has a question. In fact, it's one of my questions, Carol, so you probably already know what this is. Robin?
Clerk, I have, before Ms. Robin, Gary Wall and then Denise Wilson had their hands up. So I've already unmuted Gary.
Okay, well, I didn't see him on here at all. So
no, he raised his hand in the other screen. So Gary, you may speak. So
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. It's not a question. I just a comment. My only experience with you as a person was when you were running for the Senate, and I introduced you at the retirement home that's right by Proviso East. I don't know whether you remember that, but I had a good time introducing you to all those ladies, and they voted probably 95% for you.
Oh, so, thank you so much.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay. Denise Wilson, you're up.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Denise Wilson, and of course I am an employee of the clerk's office. I too have something to share, and that is one day
you lost Denise. She's on mute.
Miss Wilson.
Hello?
Blanked out. Yes.
Hear me?
Now
you hear me?
You blanked out for a minute there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Denise Wilson again. I was so honored to run into you at the furrier place where I store my furs. It was such an honor. I know you remember.
I do.
Yeah, and I was so shocked. I turned around and there you were standing there. I felt like, you know, you are a celebrity. And I was so stunned and happy to meet you and have a conversation with you. And that's what I wanted to share with you.
Well, thank you for remembering.
I wasn't here when you were clerk. I didn't come till later, but it was such an honor to meet you that day.
Well, thank you very much.
So you see, Carol, we pay our people so well, they have furs. Furs. The S.
Most definitely. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, next up is Staggers.
Hi, Ambassador Braun. I think that you are one of the most phenomenal trailblazers I've had the pleasure of meeting. And because of that, I'm curious as to when you're going to write your book, which is long overdue, because we want to read it.
Well, thank you for asking that question. People ask me that all the time, and I have not gotten my head around writing a book because, biographies are by definition egotistical, right? And so you write one and somebody's going to say, oh, it didn't happen that way, or, oh, I don't remember it like that, or, who does she think she is? I mean, it's just kind of like, I haven't gotten wrapped my head around writing a biography yet.
Oh.
Well, I've been asking that question for a while now because, it's kind of like I've been looking at these different stories that have been told about Fred Hampton. Now, I never met him, but I knew his family well, very well. And so my perspective of Fred Hampton has to do with his mother, his father, his brother, and his sister, his nieces and nephews. I knew them all. Mm-hmm. And, they told me their stories. And what I'm seeing on the screen is not the same as the stories that they've told me. So I think it's really important that you get your head wrapped around writing a book, egotistical or not. I think that for young women looking at role models, you certainly are a role model, that there are things that you've told me that I have been able to use in my political career, and it's been very, very helpful. But that's because I have a relationship and I can talk to you. But if it was in a book and somebody was reading, they'd have that opportunity too. So I'm just one that's going to keep, bothering you about being egotistical and writing that book.
Okay, thank you, Clerk Yarbrough.
Okay, it seems like there's a couple other questions. One thing I wanted to ask and see what your perspective is why do you think women have such a hard time deciding to run for office?
Because you know what? I think because it's a function of a societal shift. Again, the culture is just now coming around. We have to remember that women just got the vote 100 years ago in this country. And before that, women who gave unsolicited opinions were as likely to be put in the town square with a weight on their tongue and paraded around and punished for doing as much. So this is not something women have done. Certainly, and then as a practical matter, women do not right now, not yet, have the relationships to raise the kind of gazillions of dollars to actually do it, because campaigns are really expensive. And they're expensive, and what I tell people all the time, they're expensive not so much because the candidates themselves don't get the money, it's all these consultants. And so you have to be able to get through the mechanisms of an unregulated multi-billion-dollar industry, and women are in the main not really comfortable with doing that. Plus, it can be so nasty. I mean, I tell you, Karen, you know this. I mean,
been there, done that. Yes.
They called me everything but a child of God. I mean, it was just horrible. And so, I was able to come through it. And again, thank goodness for friends and family and people who were encouraging me. But, and it probably was in my lifetime, it probably was a blessing that I didn't get reelected. I like to say I narrowly lost, but, an inch is good as a mile when it comes to elections. If you got one vote less than the next guy, you lose. And frankly, it may have been a blessing in my case, because I don't know that I could have taken another 6 years of being pounded and hounded like I was. I mean, they came at me in every possible way. For somebody who valued the idea of being the conscience of the house, which is what I've been called, of my own integrity, to have my integrity attacked, my family attacked. I mean, I just wasn't ready for prime time. I was not ready for all of that. I didn't know that it involved family and friends, and that you had to be careful everything you said or every place you went or everything you did. I did not know any of those rules. And so, I found out the hard way. And so a lot of women look at those things and say, do I really want to set myself up for all of that? And they conclude, no, they don't. There's a group out of Boston, Massachusetts, a very wealthy woman named Barbara Lee, who has the Barbara Lee Family Foundation. And she has, her whole foundation is dedicated to training women to run for public office. And it's a real service, and I'm glad she does it, because what she does was she has these people on staff who research the reasons why women don't brave the beard the lion to get out there to run for office, and then encourage them to overcome their fear, overcome whatever limitations they believe that they are facing. And again, back to the kid with the basketball. It's a matter of the possibilities versus the limitations. And some people look at the limitations and say, I can't do that. Other people look at the possibilities and say, I absolutely will do that.
Okay, I have one more question. Your legislative career, what do you think your most important piece of legislation was that you got passed?
Well, it's funny because, as you know, having been a legislator, there are the things you pass and things you keep from passing. I mean, when you consider that 20 years ago, I was able to keep the Confederate flag from getting a patent, a renewal, but that was 20 years ago. And we're still having that conversation in the country, even today. That was one of the things that I did. I was the first woman in history to be on the Senate Finance Committee, and which was a real honor. And for me, a very, very important thing. But there, again, back to why it's important to have a woman in the room. There were some of the guys who were going to put a 20% co-payment on mammograms, which for all intents and purposes is a tax on women's health. And I was able to stop. I raised my hand and said, you guys may not have boobs to care about this, but here, think about half your constituents will have this 20% tax on mammograms. I said, have you lost your mind? Are you going to have to go back and explain this to people? And you could see the light bulbs going off. They just hadn't even thought about it. So again, I think the fact that being in the room, being able to raise issues that had not been raised before, that would not otherwise have been raised, was important for me, whether it was in education or in civil rights or in healthcare. All of those things made a difference. And I'm very, very proud of my legislative record, which now, as it turns out, is more extensive than I even thought.
Well, you truly have given us your words of wisdom for those who haven't been down this track. I know what it is being an elected official, and all the pitfalls, and being a woman, and being the first person of color, and the first woman in the U.S. Senate. What was that like? I know they just rolled the red carpet out for you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Karen. No, when I first showed up to the Senate, the guards at the door didn't want to let me in until the guy next to him said, oh, no, that's the new senator from Illinois. And then he opened the door. It's like, what? Maybe if I put on some horns and painted my face blue and red, I might even get in.
You go.
But
they
yeah,
would have bid you post-haste. Post-haste. Well, listen, thank you so very much. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but I just want to thank you for sharing your pearls of wisdom with us today during Women's History Month. And you certainly are somebody who has done a lot, somebody who continues to do a lot, and being a part of the conversation. I know that you're still here with us. You're still in this city, and I'm so glad. And I'm glad that I'm able to pick up the phone and say, hey, what about this? Thank you for being there for me. Thank you for being there for women, so that women can continue to reach for the stars.
Well, thank you for the invitation. It's been my pleasure to be with you.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to our president.
Wow, great closure there, Karen. I'm so gratified that you joined us today. The Honorable Carol Moseley Braun, what an inspiration to everyone that's on the phone today. And what a pleasant conversation. We're dealing with some pretty significant issues, but your persona is one that's so level-headed and intelligent and savvy from all of your experiences. I think we all gained a lot today, and I thank you for your participation. For all of our guests that joined us today, keep the Rotary Club of Maywood Proviso in your prayers as we work to make this world a better place, both locally and globally. Have a wonderful, blessed day, everyone. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Dr. Lipton.